Have you ever wondered what would happen if a billionaire lost everything, even for just a few days? Not his money in the bank, but his identity, his influence, his ability to command the world with a single phone call. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of a man who had it all, only to find the one thing he was missing in the most unexpected of places. This is a tale about wealth, poverty, and the surprising power of human kindness. Meet Arthur Vance, a name synonymous with power. He was a titan of industry, a man whose net worth had more zeros than most people could count. His days were a whirlwind of high-stakes meetings, private jets, and five-star everything. The world was his oyster, and he'd pried it open with a golden crowbar. Arthur believed in one thing: the power of the dollar. To him, everything and everyone had a price tag. Kindness was a transaction, and charity was a tax write-off. He was efficient, ruthless, and utterly disconnected from the world outside his boardroom. One day, seeking a new thrill, Arthur decided to go on an exclusive, off-the-grid yachting trip in the Philippines. He wanted to conquer the untamed seas, just as he had conquered the world of business. But the ocean, unlike his board members, doesn't bow to any man. A sudden, violent storm, a freak squall that wasn't on any forecast, descended upon his luxury vessel. The sky turned black, the waves grew into monstrous walls of water, and in a terrifying clash of nature's fury, Arthur's yacht was torn apart. He was thrown into the churning sea, clutching a piece of wreckage, his world of privilege instantly washed away. He woke up not on a velvet cushion, but on the coarse sand of a remote beach. His designer suit was in tatters, his billion-dollar watch was gone, and his body ached with a pain he'd never known. He was alone, disoriented, and for the first time in his life, utterly powerless. He stumbled through the dense jungle shouting for help, but only the sounds of exotic birds answered. The humidity was suffocating, a stark contrast to his climate-controlled existence. Thirst clawed at his throat, and hunger gnawed at his stomach. The man who could buy any meal in the world couldn't find a single drop of clean water. Days blurred into a desperate struggle for survival. He was no longer Arthur Vance, the billionaire. He was just a man, stripped of everything, humbled by nature. Just as he was about to give up, on the brink of collapse, he saw a wisp of smoke curling up in the distance. Hope, a feeling he'd long forgotten, surged through him. He followed the smoke and stumbled into a small clearing where he found a modest hut made of bamboo and nipa leaves. A young boy, no older than 10, was playing outside. The boy, whose name was Leo, saw the strange, disheveled man and ran inside, shouting for his mother. A woman named Maria emerged from the hut. Her face was etched with the lines of hard work, but her eyes were kind. Seeing Arthur's wretched state, she didn't hesitate. There was no suspicion, no fear, only concern. She and her husband, a fisherman named Ben, helped him inside. They didn't have much. Their home was a single room, their furniture was handmade, and their possessions were few. But what they had, they shared. Maria cleaned Arthur's wounds with a gentle touch, using herbs she'd gathered from the forest. She gave him fresh water to drink from a coconut shell, and it was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. Ben came home from a long day of fishing with a modest catch. That night, they cooked a simple meal of grilled fish and rice over an open fire. For this family, it was a normal dinner. For Arthur, who was used to gourmet feasts, it was a revelation. He watched as Leo, Maria, and Ben shared their food, laughing and talking. There was a warmth and a love in that tiny hut that he had never felt in any of his sprawling, empty mansions. They couldn't understand his English, and he couldn't speak their dialect, but through gestures and smiles, they communicated. They gave him a clean, dry set of Ben's clothes. They offered him a spot to sleep on a simple woven mat. It was far from the silk sheets he was used to, but that night, Arthur slept more soundly than he had in years. He wasn't a CEO or a magnate. He was just a guest, a human being cared for by another. Over the next few days, Arthur lived with the family. He watched Ben mend his fishing nets with meticulous care. He saw Maria tend to their small vegetable garden, her hands working the soil with a deep respect for the land. He saw Leo study his schoolbooks by the light of a single kerosene lamp, his face full of determination. They had so little in terms of material wealth, yet they were so rich in spirit. They found joy in the sunset, in a successful catch, in a shared story. They were a team, a unit bound by love, not contracts. One afternoon, Arthur tried to help Ben with the nets. His clumsy, half-soft hands fumbled with the coarse rope. Ben, instead of getting frustrated, laughed a hearty, genuine laugh and patiently showed him how to do it. In that moment, Arthur felt a connection he'd never experienced in a business deal. It wasn't about profit or gain, it was about shared effort, about helping one another. He started to see the world through their eyes. He realized the price of a fish wasn't just a number on a menu, it was Ben's long hours under the hot sun, the risk of the open sea, the skill passed down through generations. The value of a vegetable wasn't what you paid at a supermarket, it was Maria's daily labor, her battle against pests, her hope for a good harvest. For the first time, Arthur understood true value, and it had nothing to do with money. One day, a Coast Guard boat was spotted in the distance. The family helped Arthur signal it, waving frantically. As the boat drew closer, the reality of his old life came rushing back. He was about to be rescued. He would return to his world of wealth and power. As he prepared to leave, he felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. He tried to explain to the family that he was a very rich man, that he would repay them 1,000 times over. He gestured wildly, trying to convey mansions, cars, and money. Ben and Maria just smiled and nodded. They didn't seem to understand or care about his wealth. Maria pressed a small, hand-woven bracelet into his hand. Leo gave him a smooth, perfectly shaped seashell he had found on the beach. These were their treasures, and they were giving them to him. They wanted nothing in return. Their kindness wasn't a transaction. It was a gift, freely given from the heart. As Arthur climbed onto the rescue boat, he looked back at the family standing on the shore, weaving. In their simple, humble life, they had shown him a richness he never knew existed. He was leaving the island, but he was taking a part of it with him. The world he was returning to suddenly seemed cold and empty in comparison. True to his word, Arthur didn't forget them. But he didn't just send them a check. That would have felt cheap, like putting a price tag on their humanity. Instead, he returned, not as a billionaire in a suit, but as a friend. He helped them build a sturdier house, but made sure it was what they wanted, preserving the simplicity they cherished. He established a foundation to build a new school for the village and a small clinic, ensuring Leo and the other children had a brighter future. He created a sustainable fishing cooperative, empowering Ben and the other fishermen to earn a fair living without depleting the sea. But his greatest change was within himself. Arthur Vance, the ruthless tycoon, began to change. He started to see his employees not as numbers on a spreadsheet, but as people with families and dreams. He invested in community projects, not for the tax breaks, but because he genuinely wanted to make a difference. He learned that the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we make and the kindness we share. The poor fisherman's family didn't just save a billionaire's life, they saved his soul. They taught him that true richness lies in a heart full of generosity, a life full of love, and the simple, profound act of helping someone in need without ever asking for anything in return. Arthur kept the woven bracelet on his desk and the seashell in his pocket, constant reminders of the most valuable lesson he ever learned on that tiny, remote island. This story reminds us that no matter how much or how little we have, we all possess the power to change someone's world with a simple act of kindness. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that inspires. See you next time.